Good morning and welcome to Take Your Life Back Today show with me, Ralf Friedrichs. Today I'm going to kind of cover two topics. One goes with the other. The first one is are you, that's right, you, or someone you know, a real alcoholic? What is the definition of an alcoholic, and what are signs of alcoholism? That is one of the topics we're going to discuss. And then the other one is what do you or someone else that you might know do when you screwed up and relapsed? Those are the two topics for today. But first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Larry Geist from the Geist Academy at 516-485-2741. That's 516-485-2741. That's Larry Geist from the Geist Academy. Larry is a addiction recovery coach, a life coach, a coach with over 30 years experience, and he can help you go from your addiction to your recovery, hand in hand, side by side, step by step. Give him a call at 516-485-2745. That's 516-485-2741. Go on your internet and search him. Google www.odysseyconsultant.org. That's www.odysseyconsultant.org. That's Larry Geist from the Geist Academy at 516-485-2741. Give a shout out to globaleyeglasses.com, and I want to remind each and every one in my audience about the new promotion. That's right, you can order frames, have them sent to your home, try them on. If you don't like them, send them back to Global Eyeglasses. All you need to do is go on their website, click on the frame that you like, and right next to it, by the dimensions of the frame, it'll say something to the effect as try at home. Press that button, get the frames you like, get them to your house, show them to your family, look in the mirror, show them to your friends, have them help you decide which frame looks best on you, and the ones you don't want, send back. Customers can try the frames by paying 50% of the frame price. There will be a return label in the box for you to return. However, you need to absorb the postage to return them, because of course that's something that's your responsibility to do. But we will supply the return label, so all you have to do is slap that label on the box and return the frames to us. You will get 100% refund, shipping not included, when you send those frames back, whatever frames you don't want. A reminder will be sent to you about the frames that they need to come back. So this is brand new at globaleyeglasses.com. I've been excited to mention it to you guys. I mentioned it last week. It is now factual today. Now, www.globaleyeglasses.com, where they are focused on saving you money. Let's dive right into this. Are you a real alcoholic? And what do you do when you screwed up with a relapse? If you're watching me right now, maybe there's a question that is the elephant in the room and has been bouncing around your head nonstop, like white noise. You may be struggling with alcohol dependence, or you are slipping downward into a slippery slope towards addiction. It isn't pleasant to think about, that's for sure. You are alternating between depression and anger, confusion and denial, and every other emotion on the radio dial of your soul. Alcoholism is a serious business, and a lot of unease that you feel centers on one big question: am I a real alcoholic? A matter of definition of alcoholic is, in an attempt to find the answer to this million-dollar question, you will seek out a professional to define alcoholism, or what conventional wisdom states about the disease of alcoholism. Let's take a look at the definition of alcoholism as proposed by the Mayo Clinic. A chronic, this is quote unquote, a chronic and often progressive disease that includes problems controlling your drinking, being preoccupied with alcohol, continuing to use alcohol even when it causes problems, having to drink more to get the same effect, physically dependence, or having withdrawal symptoms when you are rapidly decrease or stop drinking. If you have alcoholism, you can't consistently predict how much you'll drink, how long you'll drink, or what consequences will happen from your drinking. Seems pretty cut and dry, right? Preoccupation, continuing to drink despite the negative consequences. Tolerance, withdrawal, not knowing how much you will drink, and even given period, the writing is on the wall. Where are you at? When we think of alcoholics or addicts for that matter, the scenes we paint in our minds come right out of the Hollywood drama scene. Lost jobs, lost families, bankruptcy, suicide attempts, living in a car, having in shelter, living under a bridge, disease, emergency room visits. Obviously, these outcomes can be the result of alcoholism and are the images that immediately come to mind when you think about alcoholism. However, what if you don't fall under any of those scenarios? Yeah, you have been known to have a few and like to party it up a little bit, like a lot of you folks out there, including myself at one time. Who doesn't and who didn't, right? You can drink until the small hours, but you go to work every day and are productive. Like I was a productive alcoholic. You may be a picture-perfect parent who packs lunch for the kids, drives the kids to school, goes to the soccer games, attends the PTA meetings. You may have the nice split-level home with a manicured lawn, white picket fence around, and a dog to stay within that fence. Your reality and the image of an alcoholic don't match up. So it is easy to overlook what may be slowly happening under your own nose. Truth is, there are different types of alcoholism and alcoholic. The high-functioning alcoholic, like I was, the young adult alcoholic, the antisocial alcoholic, and the well-familiar chronic alcoholic. In that conversation that you are having with yourself, you will have to ask tough questions. Digging deep, ask yourself, are you an alcoholic? Are you a real alcoholic? In order to answer that question for yourself, you need to go beyond the clinical definition and establish stereotypes that have been proverbial talk with a person you see in the mirror. You need to ask yourself the following questions. Listen up now. Are you starting to lose control of your drinking? Is a couple not enough anymore? Are you losing control of your drinking? How many drinks do you need to drink to get your fix? Are you acting out impulsively and recklessly when you drink? Do you have certain hidden areas of your house where you keep alcohol and consume alcohol? Do you always have a good explanation to why you drink? Do you have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality change when you drink? Are you starting to call in sick to work, missing family obligations more frequently because of your drinking? Do you have periods where you black out, lose your memory, don't remember exactly what happened the night before? If you find yourself answering yes to these questions, alcoholism is a presence in your life. Even if you only and honestly answered yes to only a few of these questions, chances are good that as time goes on, these answers will all be added to your yes column. Alcoholism is slow to develop, and the signs that you are an alcoholic can be both rapidly apparent as well as subtle. If you are an alcoholic, it is necessary to seek alcohol treatment right away. If you are seeking that treatment, please call 1-866-317-7050 and start your recovery today. It's time to take your life back today. On this show, I am letting you know to call 1-866-317-7050. What do you do when you screwed up and relapsed is the second part of this edition. You don't want to think about it, but the reality is that it does happen, and it happens to a lot of people. You are working your program of recovery to the T and are regularly attending the 12-step meetings, and you have replaced the people, places, and the things that have kept you stuck and sick in addiction. You are doing all the right things and are genuine in your journey to stay clean, but in one moment of weakness, you tumble down the slippery slope and back into the substance abuse. It can feel like the whole world has ended, and the shock of having to pick up the pieces can leave you feeling overwhelmed. Where do you begin? What in the hell are you going to do when you relapse? Shame and relapse, a dangerous combination. If you have been in an unfortunate situation where you have relapsed, please listen. Your brain and consequences are both in overdrive. Your mind is replaying the events leading up to the relapse in an infinite repeat, and at a same time your inner dialogue is engaged in full shame mode. You may say things like, I am so stupid for doing this. I am such a loser. God, I'm such an idiot. Feeling shame in the matter is normal. You have worked hard to maintain recovery, and you did the unthinkable and you relapsed. It is important to know that shame can also keep you stuck, and getting back on the proverbial recovery horse becomes more difficult. Drop the shame. You are human when you have a relapse. If you have a relapse, stand straight up, dust your knees, and march forward. Whatever you do, never ever go back into a full blast drinking binge or drugging. Why is that? It's at the core. Shame is underlying belief that you are unloved and unworthy of love. When you say things like, you're a failure, a fraud, you aren't good enough, and in the context of addiction, you are painting yourself in the corner of putting yourself in a box with little or no way out. The simple fact is, relapse is a regular part of the recovery process. Studies suggest that approximately half of all individuals who try to get sober return to heavy use, with 70 to 90% experience at least one mild, moderate slip out. Knowing this, you should be able to put things into perspective, but you still may beat yourself up. In order to move past those feelings, you need to get back into the recovery mode. You need to change your inner dialogue. How do you change your inner dialogue? So how do you move from the inner dialogue that is rooted in shame to something that is more constructive in the context of your recovery? It is important to shift how you speak to yourself and use a voice rooted in accountability. In other words, you need to move from shame towards the counterpoint emotion, which is guilt. Oftentimes, shame and guilt are used interchangeably, but in reality there are a noticeable difference. As stated earlier, shame is a painful feeling that comes from our conscious of something that is dishonorable or improper, in which we feel unloved, unworthy of love. Guilt can be a motivating emotion that springs from a feeling of responsibility for dishonorable or improper emotion. Guilt is useful in the fact that it pushes you to repair the damage you have inflicted on yourself and others in your relapse. So when you start feeling guilty, you start going back to what you're supposed to be doing, which is sobriety. Instead of saying, I am stupid, you can change your inner dialogue to, I did a stupid thing, and what was I thinking? Guilt addresses the behavior, makes you hold yourself accountable, and opens up avenues for change. While it may be difficult to do, changing your self-talk in the manner can help change the course of how you deal with yourself after a relapse. Relapse is something that we desperately want to avoid, yet we know that it can be a real possible in our journey of recovery. In our individual plans of recovery, it is important that we have ways to cope with relapse so that we can right the ship and get back on the path that we strayed from. Folks, these were the two topics I'm going to do a quick recap on. Are you a real alcoholic? And the second part of this is, what do you do when you screwed up after a relapse? If you're watching me right now, maybe the question that is the elephant in the room and has been bouncing around your head nonstop like white noise. You may be struggling with the alcohol dependence, or you're feeling that you're slipping downward in a slippery slope towards addiction. It isn't pleasant to think about, that's for sure. You're alternating between depression, anger, confusion, denial, and every other emotion on the radio dial of your soul. Alcoholism is a serious business, and a lot of unease that you feel centers in one big question. And that question is your loved one, is your friend a real alcoholic? Matter of definition, in an attempt to find the answer to this million-dollar question, you will seek out how professionals define alcoholism, or what conventional wisdom states about the disease of alcoholism. Let's take a look at the definition of alcoholism as proposed by the Mayo Clinic. Alcoholism is defined as such, quote unquote, a chronic and often progressive disease that includes problems controlling your drinking, being preoccupied with alcohol, continued to use alcohol when it even caused problems in your life, having to drink more to get the same effect, physical dependence, or having withdrawal symptoms when you rapidly decrease or stop drinking. If you have alcoholism, you can consistently predict how much you'll drink, how long you'll drink, or the consequences that will happen from your drinking, unquote. Seems pretty cut and dried. Preoccupation, continue to drink despite the negative consequences. Tolerance, withdrawal, not knowing how much you will drink in a given period of time. The writing is on the wall. So where are you at today? When we think of alcoholics, or addicts for that matter, the scene we paint in our mind is something from Hollywood. Lost jobs, lost families, bankruptcy, suicide attempts, living in a car, living in a shelter, living under a bridge, disease, emergency room visits. Obviously, these outcomes can be the result of alcoholism and are the images that immediately come to our mind. However, what if you don't fall under these scenarios? Yeah, you have been known to have a few and like to party it up a bit. Who hasn't in their life? You can drink until the small hours in the morning, but you go to work every day and you are still productive. You may be a picture-perfect parent who packs lunch for their kids, drives the kids to school, attends to PTA meetings. You have a beautiful white picket fence around your house that keeps that gorgeous dog within your boundaries. Your reality and the image of an alcohol don't match up. So it is easy to overlook what might be happening right under your nose. Truth is, there are different types of alcoholism in alcoholics. The high-functioning alcoholic, the young adult alcoholic, the antisocial alcoholic, and the so familiar chronic alcoholic. In that conversation that you're having with yourself, you will have to ask yourself tough questions. The questions need to be answered honestly. Try to answer these. Are you starting to lose control of your drinking? Is a couple not enough anymore? Are you acting out of impulsively and recklessly when you drink? Do you have certain hidden areas of your house where you keep your alcohol? Do you always have a good explanation why you drink? Do you have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality when you drink? Are you starting to call in sick to work, missing family obligations, or frequently because of your drinking? Do you have periods where you black out, lose your memory? If you find yourself answering yes to these questions, alcoholism is a presence in your life. Even if you only and honestly answered yes to a few questions, chances are good that as time goes on, the answers will all become yes. Alcoholism is a slow develop, and signs that you're an alcoholic can be both rapidly apparent and subtle. If you're an alcoholic, it is necessary to seek alcohol treatment, and it is necessary to make this phone call today. Call 1-866-317-7050 and start your life in recovery today. Start to take your life back today. What do you do when you screwed up and relapsed? You don't want to think about it, but the reality is that it does happen, and it happens every day, and it happens to a lot of people. You're working your program to recover to a T, and you attend all your 12-step meetings, and you have replaced the people, places, and things that kept you stuck in addiction. You are doing all the right things and are genuine in your journey of recovery. But in one moment of weakness, you tumble down the slippery slope and back into substance abuse. It can feel like the whole world has ended, and the shock of having to pick up the pieces can leave you feeling overwhelmed. Where do you begin? What in the hell are you going to do when you relapse? Shame and relapse, a dangerous combination. If you have been in the unfortunate situation where you have relapsed, and I hope you haven't, but if you have, your brain and conscience are both in overdrive. Your mind is replaying the events leading up to the relapse on an infinite repeat, and at the same time your inner dialogue is engaged in full shame mode. You may say things like, I'm so stupid. I'm such a loser. God, I'm such an idiot. Feeling shame in this manner is normal and don't feel out of place. You have worked hard to maintain recovery and you did the unthinkable and relapsed, and now you have to start from square one all over again. While feeling shame is normal, it is important to know that shame can also keep you stuck, and getting back into the proverbial recovery horse becomes more difficult. Why is that? At its core, shame is the underlying belief that you are unloved and unworthy of love. When you say things like you are a failure, a fraud, and aren't good enough in the context of addiction, you are painting yourself in a corner or putting yourself in a box where there is little way out. The simple fact is, relapse is a regular part of recovery. Studies suggest that approximately half of all individuals who try to get sober return to heavy use, with 70 to 90% experience at least one moderate, mild slip-up. Knowing this, you should be able to put things into perspective, but you still may beat yourself up. In order to move past those feelings and get back into the recovery mode, you need to change your inner dialogue. This is how you change your inner dialogue. So how do you move from your inner dialogue that is rooted in shame to something that is more constructive in the context of your recovery? It is important to shift to how you speak to others and to yourself, and to use a voice rooted in accountability. In other words, you need to move from shame towards counterpoint emotion, which is guilt. Oftentimes, shame and guilt are used interchangeably, but in reality, there are noticeable differences. As stated earlier, shame is a painful feeling that comes from our consciousness of something that is dishonorable and improper, in which we feel unloved and unworthy of love. Guilt, on the other hand, can be a motivating emotion that springs from feeling of responsibility for dishonorable or improper emotion. Guilt is useful. Repeat, guilt is useful in the fact that it pushes you to repair the damage you have inflicted on yourself and others during the relapse. Instead of saying, I am stupid, you can change your inner dialogue to, I did a stupid thing and I wasn't thinking. Guilt addresses the behavior, makes you hold yourself accountable, and opens avenues for change. While it may be difficult to do, changing your self-talk in the manner can help change the course on how you deal with yourself after relapse. Relapse is something we desperately want to avoid, yet we know it can be a real possibility in our journey of recovery. In our individual plans of recovery, it is important that we have ways to cope with relapse so that we can right the ship and get back on the path we might have strayed from. Again, if you relapse, stand straight up, stick your chest out, dust your knees, and move forward. And whatever you do, never, ever, ever go back to full-blown substance abuse. Folks, these two episodes, or this episode with two parts, was a very informative one, I feel, and I hope you, in your living room, in your kitchen, at the homeless shelter, in the jails, wherever you might be watching me, got a message that was loud and clear. The message of, are you an alcoholic? Did you answer yes to those questions? Even if you answer half of those questions yes, you are on the way of becoming an alcoholic and you need to put an end to it today. The second part of this episode, what do you do when you screw up and relapse? I hope you got something out of this. By all means, please, if you're watching me and you don't have these issues, forward this video to someone that might. Because someone out there, besides me getting help right now, because this is my rehab daily, this is my AA, when I do these videos, it takes a lot of time to prepare, a lot of time to do it, and a lot of time to finish it. This is my rehab. This is how I've been staying sober day after day after day. So when I give you this message, I am helping myself, but I'm hoping to help just one. If I can do more, even better. But at least one more person on the other side of this camera. That person might be you. That person could be your spouse, your child, your friend. Call me at 844-405-HELP if you need help. Text me at 631-599-0218. If you need to hire someone or talk to someone with a lot of experience, get a hold of Larry Geis at the Geis Academy. 516-485-2741, 516-485-2741. Go to www.odysseyconsultant.org. Folks, I hope that everybody realizes that if you dedicate these 24 hours today, sober to me, dedicated to me, 24 hours sobriety, I guarantee you tomorrow will be a better day automatically. If you stay sober one day at a time, the next day becomes better. That I promise you. And remember that all these changes that we all talk about constantly, all can only happen with small steps. They don't just happen overnight. But take those small steps towards change, take those small steps in sobriety, and you will see your life getting better. And please teach all your children, all your grandchildren, to say no to drugs and alcohol. Be a part of their life. Become the role model that you're supposed to be. Be the hero that they see in their little eyes when they look at you. Don't smoke, don't drink, don't use profanity, don't physically abuse anyone in front of your children. If you need to drink, smoke, or use profanity, do it away from your children, and never ever use physical violence towards anyone. Folks, I hope to God that each and every one of you in my audience, no matter where you might be watching me, has the best day of their life, but I hope to God and I pray to God that each and every one has a sober day today. Dedicate these 24 hours of sobriety, and then do the same tomorrow and day after, because your life will get better. May God bless each and every one of you. Bye-bye.